one of the things we want to do first is talk about why people have myths, and what they can do to be more informed. I think the biggest thing, obviously, with myths, and this goes with any myth, not just homelessness, but myths about anything in the world, is the fear of the unknown. Is a lot of people don't know about homelessness. Obviously, this is our world. This is where we live. This is where we work. This is our passion. This is what we do. So we've learned a lot about homelessness. We've learned a lot about the people who are actually experiencing homelessness and what that experience is like from people. And I think that's one of the things that people can do to make sure that they are more informed and that they get away from that fear of the unknown. I think one of the big things is volunteer.
Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
Is volunteering at providers, at service providers, at homeless service providers, really, I think makes a difference.
Yeah. I think education, man, to really go into this podcast is that it's right people and having them understand that this and understand all businesses and understand what happens to when someone's homeless.
Yeah.
And how we work people with that. But yeah, education I think is key for everyone. So kind of about what to do.
Yeah, and some of the other reasons that people fall into myths is what I term the one person example, and we see this often. Somebody sees one person out on the street who's homeless, and they think that every single homeless person is exactly the same as that person out on the street, whether they're panhandling or whether they have a serious mental health issue they're dealing with, whatever it is. But you can't, just like with anything, you can't just stereotype everybody in the population as that one person, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes that's the experience that people have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, all right. So now let's take a look at a headline from the homeless world. So Sheila Fordham, owner of the Detroit Lions, opens Ford Field as a life-saving lizard shelter. This is pretty.
That's great. Yeah.
As deadly winter storms land part of the U.S., plunging temperatures to dangerous levels, Sheila Fordham didn't wait for headlines or applause. She opened Ford Field as an emergency shelter for the homeless. Hot meals for 500 plus people every day, blankets, winter clothing, medical assistance, and warm beds. All provided free of charge all night long. Local aid groups say more than 1,200 vulnerable people have found safety and warmth inside the stadium within the first 48 hours.
That's fantastic, yeah.
When asked why she acted so quickly, Ham paused, then said quietly, "Football matters. Championships matter. But none of that means anything if people are freezing outside our doors. If this stadium can give someone warmth, dignity, or even hope for one night, that's bigger than any trophy." What set the shelter apart wasn't just its scale, it was its humanity. Guests were not rushed. They were not treated as boarders. They were not reduced to members. Families were given private areas. Elderly guests received priority medical checks. Security focused on protection, not intimidation. She stopped by cots. She spoke softly with guests. She listened. That moment didn't trend online. There were no cameras, no applause. More than a stadium, a standard, place of worth, place of dignity, a place that chose humanity first. That leadership isn't measured by visibility, but by impact. That compassion doesn't need a spotlight, and sometimes the most meaningful victories happen far away from the store.
This is a great headline. And when I read this, it gave me kind of goosebumps, because you're talking about someone who is by far a multimillionaire, who owns a football team. And by the way, I've been to Ford Field, and Ford Field is in the middle of downtown Detroit. So that there are people that are there that are experiencing homelessness out in the streets that need this kind of help. And for her to open up the stadium immediately is, I think, really a testament to her really being part of the community. It is understanding that she has a responsibility, not just as the owner of the football team, but also as a person in the community, to be able to do as much as she can for those that are ill.
And people coming together just so quickly to do all these things of meals and cots, and
Absolutely.
shows how the community gets together to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, some of these things might not even get noticed. This was not a big headline. I didn't see it. I didn't see it on the major news networks. I didn't see it anywhere. But this is the type of stuff that we've been talking about all year, about how the NFL gives back and how NFL players give back and how owners and other people really contribute to the community and make the community better than what it is. So this is a fantastic story. Really good one. All right. Well, now let's talk about the Super Bowl and the offseason for our Bears and our Cowboys. Yep. So let's start with the Bears and the Cowboys offseason. Then I'll get into the Super Bowl stuff.
So we've had a couple of changes.
Yeah.
We've been working on our defense. So we got a defense coordinator, Christian Parker. We came from the Packers. Okay. He replaced someone. And then we had the secondary. If we struggled all year.
Yeah, definitely.
Pass game, we have Derek Ashley. He's also from the Packers and Chargers.
Wow. Okay.
Then we have.
So y'all are going to be the Packers South? Is that what we're
Well, I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, they didn't do very good last year. Debbie, hey, might have heard that the Bears beat them twice. So, just say
We've mentioned that before.
not that we have to talk about that, but I'm just saying, Bears beat them twice.
Then we have defensive line Marcus Dixon. So Minnesota Vikings hired as a defensive line coach.
Okay.
And then right now we're interviewing a couple of people, Ravens DC Zach Org.
Oh.
And offensive staff assistant or coach Raymond Chinyo. So that's come. Oh, he was coach by the Steelers. So that's how we'll get a little bit going on.
Okay.
That's other than that.
Wow. Was it so? Who are y'all going to get in the draft? That's what we want to know.
I don't know.
Don't y'all have 2 draft picks? I think you all have like number 12 and like there were 20 or something like
12 because of the Packer, because
because it's Packers.
Yeah. I don't know who we're picking. I have no idea yet.
Who should they? Position should they pick?
Oh, it's a lot of episodes. So
Of all the players, of all the positions you get pick.
we're excited. We have to end us. We have to end all. I don't know. You will see.
So I know they talk about a running back for you all, and I think y'all do need a running back.
Yeah, I think so.
But you also need defensive help. I mean, you got to have somebody on the defensive side. Otherwise, definitely it's not going to go right.
I'll want to go your side.
Yeah. On our side, again, we don't have a lot of changes, which is great. We're bringing back a lot of the same players, a lot of the same coaches, which is great. Obviously, Ben Johnson, that was his first year last year, so he installed a lot of people there. So I think we're set on that side in terms of the coaching and everything like that. In terms of the players, what we really need is we need defensive players. We need an edge rusher, a pass rusher, or we need someone who can help us stop the run. We were terrible against the run last year. And so I think they're looking at either a really big defensive tackle who can fog up the middle, maybe even somebody who can pressure from the inside, or an edge rusher, a defensive end that can really, help us with the pressure on the quarterback. Yeah, I think our secondary is pretty good. Our linebackers are okay. I'd like to see us maybe get another, athletic linebacker, but other than that, I think we're pretty good. I think we're pretty set.
Guys had that season. So.
Yeah, we did. We did. And again, we've talked about this. My biggest thing is right here, number 18, Caleb Williams. He's got to get more accurate. He has to be more accurate, or there's no way that we're ever going to move up the ladder or really, progress what we need to do. He's got to get more accurate.
I know close games you guys have was be able to. I can't.
He's proven he can come back. He's proven he can make it interesting, but he definitely has not.
There's in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to give a shout out to the Walter Payton Man of the Year. I know we've had several of those nominees that we had during the episodes during the year. And I want to give a shout out to Bobby Wagner, the linebacker for the Washington Commanders, who did a fantastic job. He did a fantastic job and is the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the NFL this year. Bobby's been in the NFL for a long time, 10 years. He in fact, he used to play for the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm sure that he's happy for his Seahawks, his old teammates and his old team. But I'm sure he'd rather be there with them, of course, obviously, as anybody. All right, let's talk about the Super Bowl.
All right. Well, I want to talk to you about some bets.
Okay. All right. Okay. Here we go.
I want you to guess.
Since I've been so good at this throughout the year, my bets are bad. Yeah, I've been listening to a podcast 100% every single time. I'm rhyming every single time.
Even I'm going to the latest too.
So, okay, great.
So coin flip.
Okay.
So would it be heads or tails?
All right. What do y'all say? Heads or tails? Tails. Oh, wow. So that overwhelming tails.
So the coin flip is tied, but Tails has come up 32 times and heads 28 times in Super Bowl history. Oh, wow. Okay. So, who will win the Super Bowl? The Patriots or Seahawks? Oh, yeah, a little mix of the odds. So, light dots coming up 69% the Seahawks will win. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. All right. First team to score.
Gonna be the first team to score. Patriots.
59% says the Seahawks.
Okay, I think it's the Seahawks. I think Seahawks will score first.
The first scoring play. First scoring, will it be a touchdown?
First scoring play. Beat the touchdown. Yes.
All right, 60% says a touchdown.
I think it will be a touchdown. It'll be a Seahawks touchdown.
All right, so next, read one. Which Patriots fan will be shown first? A celeb. Cardi B.
Cardi B. Okay. Okay, good one.
Came up 75% Mark Wahlberg.
Oh. Wahlberg at the huge Patriot.
So now same question for the Seahawks. Who will be shown first? Which celebrity? I didn't know this.
Don't know.
All right, 66% is Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt. Oh, yeah, Chris Pratt's a big. Yep.
All right, see, I'll leave this on for that. But yeah, the Gatorade color when they dump it on Coach. What is
the win on Coach?
What is the color?
I say it's your Gatorade. Either blue, and it will depend on who wins. Let me say this. Now, if it's a Seahawks, it'll be blue. If it's a Patriots, it'll probably be red.
Yeah. So 65% said orange. Second is blue.
Second is blue.
So, well, now, this is the best question.
Yes.
This recall. Yes. He is a big Bad Bunny fan. That's cool. And so it is Devin, and that's all we say.
That's right.
So what?
That's all.
And it's just because I want to hear him say this. What is? Yeah. What's the number one song he's gonna sing first?
Okay. Here it is.
Please say
it is. So there's Baile.
That's not it.
Inolvidable.
Whoa.
So Baile. Inolvidable. Okay. That's what it is. Right? But this is the one he's going to see. Unforgettable. 66%. Nah. No. Chichi mi pregunto.
Love it. So what? They're just like that, right? So 66% says, "Iti me pregunto." That's this person that you're saying no.
Okay, but I like it. What does that mean? Say it again. What's that mean?
Iti me pregunto. Asking my heart.
Asking my heart. Okay.
It's a song bar, did you? Song.
No, Unforgettable Dance. That's the one I'm going. Unforgettable Dance. We go. Bad Bunny. Huge Bad Bunny fan. Exactly.
Okay, so that part. That was great. All right, so that wraps up our first quarter, and we'll then start our second middle.
Yeah, but I do want to let people know that this is the end of the season 1, and we kind of want to tease a little bit our season 2. We will be coming back for a season 2, and we're hoping that our first episode of season 2 will begin right around the draft of the NFL. So we'll have a few off-season or out-of-season episodes that we're doing. And so we hope that you'll tune in, and we'll obviously put that out on all the social media and everything like that to everybody and let everybody know when that's coming.
No, and also if people have any topics they want us to talk about.
That's right.
Send them in, and that will know.
Yeah.
Season what I'm going to do our lineup.
As you can email questions at pathlifehome.org as always. Yeah. As you've done. Fantastic. All right. So let's get into the second quarter. We're getting a little deeper into a homelessness topic with something we call offense versus defense. For those of you that are active listeners, you know we do this on a regular basis. We'll each take turns discussing some opposing viewpoints of our topic this week. The question we asked this week is, are people really one paycheck away from being homeless? Now, please remember that we're trying to show both sides of the issue. These do not necessarily reflect our individual stances on these positions. All right, Danny, so you have the pros or yes. So the question is, are people really one paycheck away from being homeless? Have you all heard that as a myth, right? People say that, I'm one paycheck away, whatever the case is, blah, 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 from being homeless. So we want to talk about this as one of the myths.
All right, so I have yes. So number one, it reflects real cash flow reality. Many households have little to no emergency savings, face to fix costs, rent, debt, childcare, healthcare, that eat most income, can absorb even small shocks, car repair, medical bills.
See, yeah.
So missing one paycheck can generally trigger missed rent, overdrafts, or debt spirals. Number 2, highlight systemic issues. The phrase draws attention to wage stagnation versus rising living costs, housing healthcare expenses, precarious or gig-based work. It's usually shorthand for economic vulnerability, not personal failure.
I'll come back to that one later. Yeah.
Number 3, it builds empathy and policy awareness. It helps people understand why. Job loss feels terrifying. People stay in bad jobs. Social safety nets matter. So those are my yes or my pros.
Yeah.
Now here are the cons.
So I'll go to the cons. Again, I want to remind everyone of the question, which is, are people really one paycheck away from being homeless? And I say no. These are the cons. Number 1, it oversimplifies different situations. Not everyone is one paycheck away is the same or is the same. Some have assets below liquidity. In other words, they have things that they can turn into cash. Some have support networks. Some could cut spending temporarily. Lumping everyone together hides important differences between people who are maybe just low income or just getting by month to month, as opposed to people who truly are one paycheck away from being homeless. Number 2, it can become fatalistic. In other words, repeated use can imply that everyone is doomed anyway, right? That everyone who becomes low income is going to become homeless, which is not the case. Saving is pointless, or financial planning doesn't matter. These are all reasons why. That mindset can discourage agency or, people being self-aware and improvement, and even when change is possible. Number 3, it ignores spending choices and structural context. Reality is usually a mix of structural constraints, the cost of living or wages, individual decisions, which sometimes, people get into debt, or lifestyle, inflation, risk tolerance, those types of things. Focusing on only one side creates unhelpful blame or unhelpful excuses. And finally, it's sometimes used inaccurately. Some surveys define one paycheck away very loosely. An example would be someone would struggle instead of would immediately default, which can exaggerate the headline. We've even seen that here. And so let's talk about some of these here. And in terms of your yeses, I wanted to talk through some of those, particularly the highlights the systemic issues. It draws attention to homelessness and to the plight of people who are low income. But the reality is that not everybody is in the same situation. And so to use one phrase, you're one paycheck away from being homeless, and just, cast that out to everybody, I think really does a disservice, because not everybody is. And a lot of people are not. It's about support networks more than anything. And a lot of people have support networks. I mean, think about the people who would help you if you lost a paycheck, or if you lost a job, or whatever the case is. It doesn't take that in consideration. But you have family members, you have churches, you have friends, you have people who would help you, right? You have people who would get you through that little thing, or that, that low income piece of it.
I think when you use that statement, one paycheck, when you're just putting someone in a box,
Absolutely.
putting everyone that they're all the same, and everybody has a different scenario or different why they're in that situation, but they're not necessarily one paycheck away. It's just I hate that.
Yeah, it's too encompassing. It's too overbearing for everybody to be in that same situation. And again, like I said, it oversimplifies different situations. And also, one paycheck away, like they said, sometimes it is inaccurate. People say they're one paycheck away, but the reality is sometimes people miss a paycheck, or sometimes miss a portion of a paycheck, and they often don't end up homeless. I mean, if everyone was literally one paycheck away, everyone who was low income was paycheck, we would have a lot of people who were having problems. But even here, even at our housing units, we have people who sometimes miss rent. And the reality is that they don't always face eviction. They don't always get kicked out the next day or the next week or whatever the case is. Now, granted, we're a nonprofit. We're trying to help everybody. We're trying to give grace to people, but there are also landlords out there that give grace to people that say, look, we understand, you got sick, you had to miss a paycheck. Okay, we'll work with you. You can pay us back in small increments. You can do things like that. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Well, let's open it up to staff.
Yeah, to the staff and does our live audience have any questions or comments? What do y'all think? Are people one paycheck away?
Go ahead and vote.
Some are. Okay. Absolutely.
Who thinks otherwise?
Are people not one paycheck away?
Some people are, and then some people are not, and then it depends on somebody's definition of what that means. One paycheck away.
Absolutely. Yeah. The definition, I think, is really important in terms of making sure that we understand what one paycheck away means. Again, and if you think about it, if you have some savings, if you have a kind landlord, if you developed a relationship with somebody, if you have friends, if you have family, a lot of times those things will mitigate. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do here. And again, I'll get into kind of Pat-Light's position, but ultimately we're trying to be that social or that support network for people when they come here. Because the people who are homeless are not one paycheck away anymore. They're already homeless, right? They've met that situation. When I'll tell just a quick story here. Hopefully it won't go too long, right, Danny? Right? As it sometimes does on the podcast, if y'all have been listening. Come on, times. But one of the things that I learned when I first got into this is that people really may not be one paycheck away, but they really will do everything they possibly can. And when I met people, that I met a lot of people in situations where they were just about to become homeless. And the thing that we always used to tell them when I was doing outreach and I was doing case management with people is I would always say to them, hold on to your housing as long as you possibly can, because it's so much harder to get back into housing than it is to keep your houses. And so you got to try to, do everything you can. But again, we talked about this on a previous episode. I think when we talk about eviction prevention, and one of the things that we talked about there was we talked about how people don't know about the resources. They don't know that there are things out there that will.
But there are a lot of services out there that will help you if you're missing 1 month of rent or 1 month of utility. It's a little hard, but there are services out there that do.
But if you wait till 3 months or 4 months, then sometimes nonprofits can't help you with it. That's it's too far.
And that's a lot of the cases when you start that eviction process. Now you're so high that it's hard to even work with a landlord or try to.
That is exactly
for housing. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let me go over Pathlight's position. We serve a lot of people who are low income. Some who have a support network and others who don't. Our job is to help anyone who has lost their support network build it back so they won't be one paycheck away from being homeless again. And I think one of the key indicators of that is we're not just trying to get people into housing. We're trying to help them build up so they never lose that housing again. And it's one of the reasons why we help people for more than 1 month. Eviction prevention is great and helping people with 1 month's rent is great. But if they're just going to fall into that situation in 3 or 4 months from now, did we really help them?
It's just putting a Band-Aid on.
That's right.
Oh, that is. That's right.
And so we're trying not to do that.
All right. We made it to the halfway point, and during halftime, we want to take a moment to highlight an inspired quote related to housing and homelessness.
All right. Well, it's time to get inspired by our quote of the week. This quote comes from Jeff Olivet. He used to be the director of the oh man, now I'm losing words, scanning. And live too. Wow, I love that. It'll come to me. Anyway,
This is when the producer does.
he's an advocate. He's an actress. He's fantastic. I met Jeff. He used to be an outreach worker, and he's a long time in our business. He's internationally recognized as a leader, particularly in public health and homelessness policy. But here's his quote. His quote is, "Homelessness isn't about who people are. It's about what happened to them." That's a powerful distinction, particularly when we're talking about myths, right? because a lot of these myths deal with who the people are, who they think that people, who they think the people are who are homeless.
It's who they see.
That's right. It's who they're seeing. And thinking about them as people. When in fact, this is something that's happened to them. You know, you think about, we're in Florida, obviously, we think about hurricanes, right? And people become homeless because of hurricanes. And very few people, when they see a hurricane victim, say, it's your fault that you became homeless. They know that the hurricane was the thing that caused it. It's the same thing with a lot of people that we see. It wasn't their fault that they became homeless. Costs went up, rent went up, all these different things went up, and they couldn't make it anymore. They couldn't go out and earn any more money. They couldn't, get promoted at their job. They couldn't do these things to help themselves from becoming homeless. So I think that's a big problem.
All right. Okay, and that concludes our halftime.
It's now time to kick off our third quarter. Our next myth is all homeless people are either addicts or have a mental illness. Have you all heard this one?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And people believe this, right? I mean, you've run into people, I'm sure, in the community, when you say that you work for a homeless service provider, that's immediately what they think, right? They start to say, oh, well, you're dealing with people with mental health issues. You're dealing with people who are addicted to substances and all of that. But they don't talk about people who are struggling or people who lost their job because they got injured on the job. But they don't talk about layoffs that happen. I mean, we've seen in the news lately, there've been a lot of companies laying off a lot of people. And if you don't have that work, if you don't have that employment, you got to be able to pay your rent. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, it's kind of like that chicken and the egg.
that's right.
And which one came first?
That's exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about that. So the myth. So the first thing we want to talk about in terms of people being either addicts or having a mental illness is a chicken or the egg, right? If people become homeless, if they didn't have a substance abuse issue or mental health issues before they became homeless, if they spend any time out on the streets, sleeping on a park bench, sleeping outside, wondering whether they're going to get their stuff stolen, whether they're going to get attacked, whether, anything's going to happen to them, that weighs heavy on people's minds. And a lot of people turn to alcohol. They turn to drugs. They turn to the number one thing that we heard when I was doing outreach was, I drink so I can sleep at night. Because when you're out on the streets and you're in the woods or you're out in the outside of a sheltered area, and then trying to get to sleep is a really big deal and is really hard. And so people would drink so that they could actually sleep.
Numb the pain.
Yeah, numb the pain. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just thinking of, we just did a pig count, right? We all went out, we saw encampments, we saw just the thought of someone there overnight. It was cold, it was raining.
Yeah.
It's hard. It takes a toll on people's mental.
It does.
In the mental state, and also, again, they for drinking and doing drugs. But that doesn't necessarily mean they were doing that before.
No, that is absolutely. And here's the thing. There's a couple of things that I've seen over the years that really help us, help us make sure and counter this myth. If you think about the number of people who have substance abuse issues or mental health issues in the community, right? In the community, the number of people, thousands and thousands of people have substance abuse issues and have mental health issues, but the majority of them are not homeless. If homelessness was really caused by substance abuse or mental illness, there would be so many more people that would be on the streets. Because you think about it, we all know you have friends and family members who suffer with these issues, and they're not homeless. They're going to work every day. They might not be the most productive, employee out there, but they go to work, they make their paycheck, they come home, or they stop at the bar on their way home after work. They have a couple of beers, a couple of martinis, a couple of whiskeys, whatever it is. They get home, they go to bed, they get up the next day, they do the same thing over and over. And so if this really were true, if this were absolutely true, that mental illness and addiction caused homelessness, there'd be so many more people that would be homeless in our situation. Yeah, right. Yeah. And let me say this. also, and because we try to be as real as we can, right, on this app, on these episodes and these podcasts, try to be as real as we can. The reality is that the homeless service system may have, and I say may have, but I think it's probably true, we may have perpetuated this myth. We may be causing the reason that people think this. And here's my rationale. Sorry. Take this little clip off. Sorry. Working it there right now, Vadi. Anyway, but here's the reason why. Here's the reason why I say this. When you think about how our homeless service system is set up, right? And I'm thinking on kind of a bigger level, how the macro system is set up. When we look at who we're trying to serve first, we're trying to serve the people who have the most issues first, which are usually people who have some kind of mental health issue or disability, and people who have some kind of addiction issue. So it's in finance, in money talk or whatever, they talk about the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of any population uses up 20% of the resources, and 20% of the population uses up 80% of the resources. So what we did is, a long time ago, there was actually a study done in New York. I think it was New York anyway, where they did, I don't know if you ever heard of $1 Million Murray. Ever heard of that? There's this famous case where service providers, homeless service providers, tracked and did a study on an individual who was experiencing homelessness on the streets. And what they found is that the number of resources that person used over the course of a year cost over $1 million to serve that person when they were out on the streets, as opposed to moving them into housing or whatever they did. But my point is ever since that happened, ever since we had that $1 Million MER, what we've tried to do as a homeless service system is we've tried to target the people who needed housing the most. And it just so happens that a lot of those people have a mental illness or have an addiction problem, because they're the ones who need it the most. They're the ones who are the most vulnerable out on the streets. And so by serving those people, what we've done is we have in some ways effectively said to the community, this is who our homeless population is. Because when they come to see these people that we're serving, that we're getting into housing, what they see is they see people who have mental health issues, they see people who have addiction issues. But what we know as a homeless service system is we know that people without those issues have an easier time getting out of the system themselves and getting housed themselves. But we don't have to give them as much help, which is why we came up with programs like rapid rehousing. We talked about that in one of our episodes. The rapid rehousing, because they don't need all these services that we have connected for people. But we've perpetuated that myth a little bit because by serving these people, this population of people, but it's the population that needs it the most. They need housing the most. So you all buy that? You all think that's true? Because we're serving people who need it the most. Now, at Pathlight Home, we have a little different view, though, because we have two types of housing. We talked about this before in another episode. We have market housing, which is not for people who have addictions or who have mental health issues. It's just for people who are homeless who need affordable rent. And we move those people in, and they just get a lease, and they don't have to have service. They don't need it. That's the majority of what we're trying to prove. The problem is the community doesn't see that. They don't see most of those people. They don't see those people. How many units of shelter do they have at the coalition? 550 beds. And we know that the majority of the people in shelters can't have active addiction problems or mental health problems, or they won't be able to make it in the shelter. But we got 550 people who the majority of them are not addicts, actively addicts, or have serious mental health issues because they're in shelter and they're following all the rules and they're doing all the things they're supposed to do. 550 people there that the people in the community don't get to see. Yeah. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? I think we have a question. Okay. Go ahead.
I have more so about comment. The quote homelessness isn't about who they are, but what happened to them. And that's a very powerful quote because two things we and Pat by Droppers, and we have two ladies that were in the street because they've been scammed out of their savings. They was not active addiction, but they were scammed out of their savings. So they were on the street and we were able to house them. A while back, I met an older couple. They've been living in the house that they've been living in for 35 years. The landlord passed away. The children took over the home and sold the home and left them homeless. And because they were on a fixed income, it was hard for them to get housing. But because guess what? You got to make 2.5 times the amount of rent. We were able to house them, but that's a powerful boat. And, and it burns my ears for people to just think that kind of way, because we have people that want all different kinds of life. And everybody does not live with active addiction or mental illness. They're homeless. There's a lot of different reasons that happens.
Absolutely. And home ownership, change of home ownership or change of ownership of property is one of the bigger things that we hear nowadays in particular, is the number of times that I've heard people complaining because the landlord changed. Their landlord changed and all of a sudden now they want to have high rent condos where it used to be affordable housing and all of those different things. But anytime home ownership changes, that's a wild card. I mean, you don't know how that's going to go. Like you said, yep, the owner can all of a sudden sell the property and you can't do anything about that. If you're renting it at whatever rate or whatever, it is, you can't do anything about that. And tearing down old buildings or tearing down affordable housing units is another big one that we're having an issue with as well.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Stay tuned for our fourth book.
Okay. Welcome to our fourth quarter, where we will wind down our episode by first reflecting on a homelessness MVP, and then we will go into our final myth for the episode.
Yep. So the whole season we've done the homeless MVP, and that's right. We've picked an NFL star usually that's giving back to the community. That's right, great things.
Yep.
Me and Carl decided to do the end of this season to pick a staff member who was the MVP for us.
That's right.
So our MVP is Michael Bailey. So this one just want to give you a little story on Michael Bailey, but also give you the great work that not only Michael, but team for Nobody Left Behind has done. So Michael was a formerly homeless veteran who turned his own struggle into a service mission. Drawing from the experience, he helped veterans find hope during their most difficult moments. Each month, Michael visited the transition house in St. Cloud, Florida, where he shared his story and guided veterans in applying for medical, financial, and housing benefits they had earned. He assisted veterans with obtaining vital documentation and provided ongoing support throughout their transition. Through his outreach with the Nobody Left Behind program, Michael supported veterans experiencing homelessness through Central Florida, engaging those on the streets and in shelters across Orlando, Kissimmee, and surrounding areas. He connected veterans to housing, medical care, and critical resources, ensuring no veteran was overlooked or left behind. Through years of service and unwavering dedication, Michael had made a lasting difference one veteran at a time. So I just want to give you a couple of stats from the team, which is Gail, that's with Cindy, and Michael. Together, they've done all of these stats I'm going to give you. So they have served so far this year, because it's been a year, as I've been doing it, 67 veterans. They have housed 44 veterans. Now, putting Nobody Left Behind, yes. Putting Nobody Left Behind that we house veterans, and then we ask the veterans to come back out and volunteer to do outreach. So we have had 37 veterans volunteer with us, and it's a total of 224 volunteer hours that they've done with the team. So I've got with us all.
And let me say, from the first day that I met Michael Bailey, when he was here and he started with us, I know, Danny, you knew them before and you brought him over, which was fantastic. Great find. But the first time that I met Michael's an Army veteran. I'm an Army veteran. Of course, we, hit it off from that standpoint. But you could just tell in talking with Michael that he was so excited to be able to have an opportunity to get back on the street and be able to talk to other veterans and tell them not only his story, but give them hope that they could get into housing. And one of the first stories that they did, and I think it went in the newspaper and all this, essentially, is he ran into a Navy veteran out on the street. And, I chided him a little bit for this and said, probably should have just kept on walking. But he met a Navy veteran on the street, and he said to the Navy veteran, we're here to help you. And the Navy veteran said, I don't believe you. And then 2 weeks later, I think it was 2 weeks later, he moved him into housing. Because hope is the biggest thing that you have to be able to do as an outreach worker. And Gail and Miss Cindy and Michael are the epitome of giving hope to people, right? People who don't have hope, people who don't believe in our system, who don't believe in the housing, who don't believe in the power of themselves, and giving that to them so that they can finally make it. Absolutely. And so Michael, yeah, I mean, he's an inspiration, I think, to everybody. And the fact that he can share his story and say, you know what, I did this, you can do this. It's a huge testament. Yeah, absolutely. Right. All right. Well, our final myth of the episode is some people want to live on the street. Have you all heard this? Right? Y'all have heard this one. Some people want to live out there, right? They just want to be out there. So let's talk about this myth. So I think what people are really saying, and I think I've talked about this in a different episode, but at least from my perspective, again, I used to do street outreach. I used to go out and talk with lots of people that are out on the streets. And when people would say that to me, one of the things that I would do is I had a little test that I would use. And I would say, so if I gave you the keys to an apartment, anywhere that you wanted to live, in any situation, and you didn't have to worry about anything for it, are you telling me that you wouldn't take those keys and you wouldn't move into housing? And nobody, well, that's not true. One person. I interviewed thousands of people, and I do mean thousands. I was an outreach worker for 7 years on the streets, and so I interviewed thousands of people. Only one person ever said no to that response. And so what they were really saying, what that taught me, so what they're really saying is the same thing that the Navy veteran said to Mike, I don't believe you. I don't believe you can help me. That's what they're really saying. When they're saying, I want to be out on the street, they're trying to take some control of their life. They're trying to take control of their destiny, and they're saying, I'm choosing to be out here, not I'm stuck out here. Because that'll just mess with your mind. Talk about mental health issues. It messes with your mind when you realize that you can't get out of a situation you think you should be able to get out of.
And I think also they, like you just said, if they don't believe you, they go to the system.
That's right.
The system might have failed them.
That's right.
They goes on the next person coming to help them. They're like, well, what are you going to give me that the other person offered you as well?
Right.
So it's that building that trust with the client, the person who's seen without nature.
That's exactly.
Building that trust to get them to where they should be, but on their own time.
That's right.
If they tell you they're not ready, they're not ready.
That's right.
Because if you put them in an apartment or a house, they're probably going to.
That's right.
And then you've had that
Yeah.
set of steps. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So it's working with them on their time and when they are ready to move in and do what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we used to tell them as an outreach worker, what we used to say to them is, you haven't tried us. Right? Is you haven't tried us. Right? Miss Gail? I don't know. Right? Michael? That's what you need to say to them. Is look, then they have tried every other system, every other program, and every other provider in our entire area, but they haven't tried us. And all we're saying is just give us one shot. That's it, one chance to get you to the place that you need to be. And that's all we're asking is just give us that one shot. If you can let us do that, if you can let us work with you to get you to where you need to be or where you should be, we will help you get there. And again, then it's about their journey. It's about empowering them and supporting them and helping them understand how they can be and the power in your life. Yes, I see that exactly. Yeah. And I think And again, one of the things that we want to point out is that people do want better lives. I mean, they do. But in the absence of knowing how to get there, all they can do is choose where they are currently. And there's a term in psychology called learned helplessness. And they get these big experiments and all this good stuff. But basically what it means is that when you're in a situation where no matter what you do, you end up in the same place, pretty soon you start to realize, I can't go anywhere. And I've learned this, and now I can't do this.
They have to tell you how they want to live.
That's exactly.
You tell them how they want to live,
It does not work.
it's not going to work.
It doesn't work that way. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, here's our key takeaway for this episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So just like anything, the only way to avoid making the mistake of believing myths is to get educated. Don't just believe everything someone posts on social media, on the news, or you hear from another person. Challenge them by first asking, have you ever talked to someone who is homeless? Or volunteered at a place that helps people who are homeless? If the answer is no, then there's a good chance you should not believe what the person says.
So Jack, all right, and again, this goes with a lot of myths, but definitely with homelessness, is a lot of people are out there spewing, what they think they know or what they think should be done or what we should be doing and all this kind of stuff. But most of it is just for, I don't know, it's just for attention more than anything, right? People are trying to get the attention of people and trying to make them pay attention to them rather than actually trying to help solve the problem. Because the second question that you ask them, if they say, oh yeah, well, I've gone and I've volunteered, or I've gone and I've done this, or I've talked to somebody, whatever the case is, you say, what are you going to do now about solving the problem? And if they don't have answers and solutions to the problem, then again, they're just perpetuating this too. Because it's about solutions, it's about answer. And that's one of the things that we really try hard on this episode to combat and to put out there is we try to put out both sides. Look, we're not trying to say that it's not hard, and we're not trying to say that homelessness is for everybody to do. That's not what we're trying to say. What we're trying to say is that everybody has part in playing that they could do here, that they can make a difference, no matter what it is, whether it's money, whether it's talent, whether it's, volunteering, whatever it is. It's any of those, I guess. Yeah. So we want to say thank you to everyone who listened to the Home Team Podcast, who's listening now and who's listened in the past. We started this podcast not only to have fun, talking about football, of course. Obviously, we love football. And razzing each other. That's right, exactly. But also to educate our listeners and bring awareness to homelessness, an issue that means a lot to us. We've received such positive feedback from many people sharing how educational the show has been. And that support truly means everything to us. That support does. This is our final episode of the season, but we'll be back with special episodes during the offseason, including the season 2 kickoff before the NFL draft. So we want to say thank you to our audience. Thank you all very much. We appreciate the work that you do. Again, our staff is here and they're helping support us. And we can't do any of this without any of you out there, because you all are doing the hard work. You all are making it happen. You all are getting these people housed. We're giving them hope. We're giving them chances to change their lives. And so it really means everything to me and Danny here to have you all here, but also to be part of what we're trying to do. And we want to thank everybody for being part of the home team.
Yep.
All right, great.
I look forward to next season.
Absolutely, for the next season. So thank you all.